everyone. I am about to introduce to you this author right here, and his name is long. It is Charles Harrington Elster. I didn't want to screw it up, but look at this book, How to Tell Fate from Destiny. This is so cool. If you love writing and reading like I do, I had no idea. I mean, it is just packed full of the differences between words, and I wish I would have had this in high school. I might have done better in vocab. I mean, it is crazy. He's got pictures. I don't know. I am so happy he found me, and I can't wait to talk to him. We're going to be talking on the telephone, so you are going to be looking at this book right there. Look at that cover. Isn't that so cool? And like a book that you actually want to read about words, which I'm going to ask him how he did it. So everybody, here is Charles Harrington Elster.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited today because I am speaking with author Charles Harrington Elster, and we are talking about his brand new book called How to Tell Fate from Destiny. And everybody is looking at the cover of this as we speak, which I love the cover. And I am so excited that you found me and that we could actually talk about this book. I love this book. Tell me your history and your background and how you got to do this.
Sure. I'm the son of two professional musicians who loved language, and they made their livings with music, but they loved words, and they instilled that in me. And I grew up to be someone who loves music, but tries to make his living with words. I just have always had that feeling of awe and wonder and respect for the power of language. And I just somehow fell into, perhaps because my mother was kind of an arbiter of language, and she would say, no, it's not flaccid, it's pronounced flaccid, and we'd all run to the big dictionary in the living room, and sure enough, it was pronounced flaccid. That's the proper pronunciation. So my first book was in 1988, and it was called There Is No Zoo in Zoology. It is zoology, not zoo. There is no zoo in zoology, and other beastly mispronunciations. So I started out as a pronunciation maven, and that's kind of been what I'm best known for, perhaps. I have a book out called The Big Book of Beastly Mispronunciations. It's gone through several iterations. That book, Zoo, I just mentioned, was followed by Is There a Cow in Moscow? Those two books got subsumed and revised and expanded into the Big Book of Beastly Mispronunciations. And that's been the main thread. But I'm also really big on vocabulary building. And I got into writing about it because I was so interested in it myself, and I was very lucky in the early days of personal computer development and manufacturing to work here in Southern California for a company called Kpro. You have to be pretty old to remember the metal suitcases that were the personal computers called the Kpro 2 and the Kpro 4. It was way back in the early 80s. But I was working for them on a special project because the head of the company wanted to find a way to put a certain favorite vocabulary building program of his by a guy named Johnson O'Connor onto the computer with both sound and text synchronized. So I worked with a software engineer on that for several years, developing that program. And then I got into writing the books, and, just more vocabulary building books flowed from that. Verbal Advantage is one of my best known ones. That was followed up some years later with Word Workout. And I'm the author of two vocabulary building novels. In fact, I am the co-originator of the idea, the concept of a vocabulary building novel, the idea being that you read an actual novel. I would compose a novel with words taken from the college entrance exams, the SATs, the ACTs, and those words would be worked into the novel and set in boldface type and then defined in a glossary in the back of the book. So there's no excuse for you to commit that cardinal sin of reading that I always tell people about. Don't read around the words you don't know, because, one, you're cheating yourself, learning a new word, by flattering yourself that you're so smart that you can guess it from context.
Right.
You know, and then if you don't check your guess in a dictionary, if you don't confirm that your idea of this definition of this word is correct, well, what are you doing? You're building a vocabulary filled with incorrect definitions, and you're going to hurt yourself if you try to use that word. So I've been doing pronunciation, vocabulary building, and more recently, books on usage as well for nigh unto 30 years here. And this most recent one, How to Tell Fate from Destiny, is my 12th book, and it's sort of a combination of a thesaurus and a usage manual. And it focuses mainly on confusables, words, pairs of words or groups of words that we tend to misconstrue and misuse. So in the introduction, I'm trying to characterize what's in the book and get people interested. So I say, well, this book will tell you, How to Tell Fate from Destiny will tell you if you're pitiful or pitiable, whether you suffer from pride, vanity, or hubris, whether you're going to wind up in limbo or purgatory, and how to live an ethical life in a moral universe. We tend to confuse a lot of these words, and I'm trying to dispel some of the fog.
And I love that. And when I was in fourth grade, as a punishment, our teacher would make us write from the dictionary. Like if you got in trouble, you had to sit down and you had to write, copy words from the dictionary. And I loved doing it so much that I asked to take the dictionary home and then made notebooks from the dictionary. So I knew that I was always going to be like a word person from the beginning, because I thought that was just such a fantastic idea with copying the dictionary. But it doesn't help you with basically usage. I had a good sense of a common sense when I would take tests. But when I was reading this book, I was like, okay, well, that got me so far. That'll get you so far, common sense, right?
Yeah, but common sense isn't enough.
Right.
You need authority.
Yeah.
You need authority to back up your common sense. I do this monthly, language answer guide, language maven guy on live radio, KOA Denver with on the Mandy Connell show, once on the third Thursday of every month. And your listeners can tune into that through
I'll put the
website,
link.
I guess.
Yeah.
8:50 a.m. KOA Denver. And Mandy Connell, the host, likes to call my segment, Tell Me I'm Right. Because people call in and they say, am I right about this? I have this pet peeve, or I have this notion, and I'm arguing with my wife or my father or whatever it is. I want to know, am I right? And most of the time I can say yes, but some of the time I have to let them down a little slowly. But you were talking about the dictionary, and I wish I could remember the guy right now. I came across a quotation from somebody a while ago, and I put it on my website as a quote of the week. And he said, I was reading the dictionary the other day, and it seemed like the most beautiful poem I'd ever read. And, that's the way I feel about dictionaries. And I collect dictionaries, and I know a lot about dictionaries and their strengths and weaknesses and their history and stuff, and the people who made them and so forth. It's a real hobby of mine. And you're right. You made a brief comment there before that dictionaries do not help you much with usage. That is very true. And in fact, certain dictionaries will give you bad advice about usage and pronunciation. Specifically, by far, the most popular dictionary or dictionary line in the United States for American English is published by, you want to guess?
No, I don't know.
And don't say Webster, because I love to tell people,
I know,
Webster.
that was
There are a million dictionaries named Webster. I can write a dictionary. Charles Harrington Elster's Webster's Dictionary. If the name is in the public domain, anybody can use the name Webster. But you can't use the name Merriam-Webster.
Oh, okay.
That is a registered trademark. And in fact, Merriam-Webster, based in Springfield, Massachusetts, got into a big legal fight some years ago with Random House publishers because Random House came out with a dictionary, a desk-sized dictionary that would compete with the Merriam-Webster line, which has always had about 3/4 of the dictionary market. And Random House came out with Random House Webster's College Dictionary and bound it in red, just like Merriam-Webster. So Merriam-Webster sued them for infringement, and they won on the first round, but then Random House appealed, and Random House prevailed on the appeal, as they should have, because Webster's in the public domain, and so what? A lot of desk dictionaries are bound in red. Big deal. So Random House won that battle, but Merriam-Webster, back to dictionaries you cannot trust, Merriam-Webster is unimpeachable. And by the way, they publish the collegiate line of dictionaries. So if your dictionary cover or title page says collegiate on it, that's a trademark, and that's a Merriam-Webster dictionary. Now, since 1961, when Merriam-Webster published the third New International Dictionary, which got so much criticism from writers and intellectuals and pretty much everybody for being way too permissive, and also for dumping a lot of words that just throwing them out the window that were in the previous edition. The whole line has been very, very permissive in its approach to language, and it's a long story, but I'll make it as short as possible. That's because in the 1960s, there was a rise in what it was called structural linguistics. The linguists of the academy kind of took over the whole educational field, how English was taught. It was no longer English where you parsed sentences. It was now language arts, and everything changed. The whole notions about right and wrong in language changed, and the way dictionaries were made changed to what's called descriptivism, where you just hold a mirror up to the language and say, this is what it is, warts and all, for better or worse, versus what had been done before 1961, which was mild prescriptivism, where you could label words and say, this is an erroneous usage, or this is a disputed pronunciation, that kind of thing. You could make normative grammar comments. You could distinguish a little bit between right and wrong, but dictionaries the editor stopped doing that. And so if you look in the collegiate line of Merriam-Webster, you can rely on how they hyphenate words and spell words. They're very good on that, very standard. That is standard American. But when you read their usage notes and their pronunciation notes, they're a disaster. And I've spent a lot of my time refuting them. In fact, I wrote an article once about pronunciation for the Wall Street Journal about how you can't trust Merriam-Webster at all on pronunciation. Just even for the letter W, they have about 16 different ways of pronouncing it, including W.
Wow.
They have pronunciation notes about, I'll give you one example about the word library. Now, if you ever hear somebody say library without that medial R, that internal R, well, you kind of wonder, that must be a mispronunciation. But the note in Merriam-Webster says, well, we have in our files records of college presidents and professors saying library. And my response to that is, well, if your college professor or, a college president said library, I'd want to take my kid and, put that kid in some other college. I mean, because that person probably also calls professors professors. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, Oh, that is so interesting. And, I love when you were talking about, like, when people call in and say, tell me you were right, because how many arguments do we have with people over, like, oh, you used the wrong word. Oh, you used the, I know I do. At least the people in my life. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I always look it up. Like, no, I don't. Let me see. Let me see if I
Well,
got
good
the
for
right
you.
word.
Good for you, because one thing that I warn people about continually, and not continuously, because, and this is in How to Tell Fate from Destiny, continuous is a never-ending, never-stopping stream. But continual is intermittent. It's here and there and now and again. So I continually, see, these are great distinctions, aren't they?
Yes.
I continually remind people that it's okay to be opinionated about language, but just make damn sure you're right before you go spreading a bunch of nonsense. Because there are a lot of people, I'll give you a couple of examples. These are classic examples. There are lots and lots of people out there who have strong feelings about the English language, but they're not really informed enough. They need to get more informed, which is another reason I've been writing all these books, so that people can bounce their opinions off my opinions, and I'm doing more research than they're doing. I'm making it easier for them to be informed and make up their own minds. But people today, tons of them, still think that ending a sentence with a preposition is wrong. They still think incorrectly that you should not begin a sentence with a conjunction, such as but or and or so. Mm-hmm. They still think incorrectly that you can't or shouldn't split an infinitive. And I'm telling you, these people they don't have a leg on which to stand. That's not the way we say it. We say, you don't have a leg to stand on, with a preposition at the end. Reputable writers, from Chaucer to Shakespeare to Tennyson to Poe to whatever you want, all of it, up to, Barbara Kingsolver. They all split infinitives when the emphasis is necessary to their ear. They all put prepositions at the ends of their sentences because that's idiomatic in so many cases. It's natural. And the Bible begins every other sentence with and. Mm-hmm. It's been part of English. These are established practices, and to object to them today is what H.W. Fowler called a cherished superstition.
Well, I tell you what, the thing is, this book is just fun to read more than anything. I mean, not only do I think that authors should have this book with them when they're writing, but it's on its own, like, not even just wanting it to use it as, like, a reference. Like, I read it like a book, okay, because I thought it was just fun to read. And I'm going to carry it around with me, too, because, I'm just going to have it very handy with me when I want to, use a word to make sure. Let me like, okay, is that? Well, you know why? Because another thing in the back of this book, you go into the silent H, which has always, I'm a homeschooling mom, okay? So, and I have 6 children, so I've homeschooled a lot. And I was like, wow, I wish I would have had this book, because even just usage, like when to use a and an for the silent H or a hard H.
That's the first entry in the book.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I was reading, I'm like, I thought I knew this. I'm 54. I've done this. I've done a lot of reading. I thought even I knew what I was doing. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I think I've been doing it a little wrong for some words. And, that's why I love this book so much. You can just keep learning and learning. And I guess it is is that like that for you? Like, are you still learning, or do you think most of the English language now?
What a great question. What a terrific question. That's a wonderful question. I'll go up against anybody with my vocabulary, okay? Because I've worked on it the way, Arnold Schwarzenegger worked on his muscles. And that's why I wrote a vocabulary building book called Word Workout. Why not work out your brain as well as your muscles, or at least your brain, and if you don't do your muscles. But anyway, I'll go up against anybody with my knowledge of words usage and etymology and pronunciation and so forth. But I maintain or try to maintain the greatest humility because, look, English has, at this point, the best estimates say well over 1 million words.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you're going to know all those words. You're not even going to know half of those words. The people with the biggest vocabularies maybe know 100,000 or so words. And that's barely 1/10 of the English vocabulary. So there's always something to learn. I encourage people, I implore people, I exhort people, once again, not to read around words they don't know, look them up. Also, not to be embarrassed or afraid or feel humiliated for some reason because you don't know a word. When someone says that or when you see it in a piece of writing, what a wonderful opportunity to enjoy another window on the world. It only enriches your vision and your horizon. That broadens your horizons and enriches your vision. So that's what I believe in. I believe in that this is, language is an area, a discipline, where you can never stop learning. My only regret is that I dabble in other languages and I'm not fluent in any of them. So English, so I kind of make up for it. It's a coping mechanism, or that's not quite the right phrase, but I have an inferiority complex because I'm not multilingual, so I have to be really, really good at English.
Right. I love that. Well, I am so happy that I got to read this. Like I said, I usually give away my books, but I'm actually keeping this book because I don't want to give it away because I want it. I'm like, I don't want to give this one away. I'm gonna hold on to this. This is like something, especially I'm still homeschooling my one son. He's in high school now, my last son. And, when it comes to teaching kids grammar and vocab and all that stuff, it seems like we're in a world that it's like, well, you can go on and things will fix it, different programs will fix your grammar and fix your spelling and fix your, but word usage, not so much. They're not going to, that's one thing that you still need to know, right?
Yeah, it's because it's a squirrely area that's changing, not overnight, but it is shifting and changing over time. And I was a consultant for Brian Garner's Modern English Usage, which is the premier usage manual for American English now. And it's very tricky. You do have to stay on top of it. You cannot rely on some app or some silly spell checker. These are all the lazy person's way of dealing with it. Well, let somebody else tell me what's right and what's wrong. No, it's your responsibility to do that. It's also your responsibility to proofread, and then proofread before you unleash your idiotic words on the world.
Right.
There's just so much garbage out there with all these typos. I don't even want to get into what the president tweets. Okay, it's just I could have a real party with parsing that stuff, but this is your responsibility. Your language belongs to you and everybody else, and what you do with it matters as much as what everybody else does with it. So if you don't pay attention to your language, if you are a sloppy writer and a sloppy speaker, well, you're doing a disservice to everybody else.
Right.
That's the way I see it.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Charles. This is so much fun. It was so much fun to talk to you and to get this out there. This book came out October 23rd, so it's only been out for a couple of weeks. And, I can't wait to see what you write next. I went through, I'm going to have your website listed below for everybody to go through. You have written so many books. Do you have anything else in the works, like as we speak?
Well, the one thing I'm trying to do without much success, but we'll see, is get a third edition prepared and published of my big book of beastly mispronunciations. It's my magnum opus, and I'd really love to do that. Beyond that, right now, I have a couple of volumes I want to self-publish of material, other material that I've done, both on language, but also book reviews and letters and poems and speeches and so on and so forth. And I'm calling that The Enthusiasms of Charles Harrington Elster, and I hope to have that out by next year, 2019. And I should, if I may just say this, you know, you were saying, I'm hanging on to this book, and I'm thinking, well, the time will come when, you know, maybe you no longer, you've absorbed everything and you no longer want it in your library, you need to weed. And I would just say, leave it in some friend's bathroom. It's a great bathroom book. Most of my books are great bathroom books. You know, you can dip in here and, you know, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes here, you know, and just sort of like answer a little question on your mind and, you know, and move on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to have all of Charles's links, the link to this book, the link to his website listed below here. And, you know, when your next one comes out, we can talk about it. So you know where to find me. I'd love to talk with you. It was a lovely conversation.
Yes, it was nice to get to know you a little bit too. And thank you so much.
Yes, have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So much, Charles. I could have talked to you all day. That was so much fun. Reading this book was so much fun, and I'd love to like pick your brain about words for a long time. I think it'd be a lot of fun to, you know, hang out with you and learn about words, but that's because I love words. Anyway, go get his book. The link is listed below, and also his website. Go to his website. It's amazing. He keeps up with it, and I loved going on there and reading. And I'm telling you, if you love words, if you're an author, if you're not an author, if you're a reader, if you're a homeschooling mom like me, you're going to love this book. So thank you again, Charles. Have a great day, everyone.